Assalamu alaikum, dear believers. Ramadan Mubarak. I am pleased to welcome you to Masjid Al-Taqwa's Talim today. My name is Dr. El-Amin. I am the chair of the Talim Committee, along with Dr. Gloria Bashir and Dr. Lionel Allen. Today, first we are recording this. And as Dr. Lionel likes to say, if if somebody's chasing after you, you might not want to say anything. But we have a great Talim plan for today. I'm really excited to welcome Imam Tariq El-Amin, who'll be talking about forgiveness and what that means, especially as we enter into the second 10 days, that second period of Ramadan. If you are not subscribed, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, Masjid Taqwa Chicago. We have all of our Talims as well as our khutbahs there. And so if you find benefit of it, please also send a link to a friend. And so without further ado, I will ask Imam Tariq to join us.
Daisha, assalamu alaikum, everyone. I want to actually begin with our Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum again. Ramadan Mubarak. Everyone is hearing me?
Yep, we hear you.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, alhamdulillah. So we know that we are into, I keep being reminded and remind myself not to say or assume what anyone knows. We like to say it's common knowledge. We understand that Ramadan is it is given to us in three parts. The first 10 days are the 10 days of mercy. The second 10 days, which we're in now, are the days of forgiveness. And the last 10 days are days that we are urgently seeking Allah's, we're seeking freedom from the hellfire, right? So I felt it was appropriate for us to talk about forgiveness, inshallah. And I want this to be a interactive conversation. I have a little slide show to begin with, and I'm going to share my screen. I'm hopefully that's not going to give away everything for. Let me see here. All right. All right. So we're going to go to view. All right. So we are talking about forgiveness. And I would like for everybody to start off by telling me what you see. Okay. All right. Everybody sees that first image. All right. Can I make this bigger?
Is this soil with something growing out of it?
Okay, I'm going to tell you in a second, but any other guesses?
Like the same thing to me. It's like something growing out of soil to me. Man.
Okay. All right. Let's check this next one. Any idea? All right. How about this one here? Can everybody see it?
Yeah, just don't know what we're looking at.
Okay.
Cake?
Okay. What about here?
Ice cubes, maybe. Sugar?
Yeah. Okay. That's a good guess. All right. And what about this?
It reminds me of a scarf pattern that I have.
Okay. All right. All right. So we're gonna actually look and we'll get the answers to what we were looking at, what you saw. Human hair follicles. Okay. Toothbrush bristles.
Huh?
This is a pencil. And these are granules of brown sugar. And finally, the tip of a ballpoint pen. So I'm pretty sure nobody got those. Anybody get them? Any of them at all? No? All right.
I got all of them right.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
I got the hair follicles.
Yeah. No, you did. You might have. All right.
I got all of them wrong.
It's okay. It's okay. But the point being here is that well, we'll say this first, right? This from Bukhari, no mercy will be shown to those who show no mercy, and no forgiveness will be given to those who cannot forgive others. I want to stop sharing for a moment and let me and then I'll go to some other slides I have. All right, so what was the point? Can anybody see the point in showing those images of what we think we saw and or trying to figure out what we were looking at, and then finding out we're actually looking at things under a microscope and how that relates to forgiveness?
That we can be wrong, but it's okay to be wrong at times. We all try to guess. I mean, a lot of us guess wrong, but it's okay to be wrong sometimes. It's not going to kill you, not going to hurt you at all.
Yeah,
Not being wrong sometimes.
yeah. That's a good takeaway. That's a good takeaway. What I saw when I looked at those images was that aside from the large offenses that we might endure or inflict upon each other, oftentimes we are in a space where forgiveness becomes an issue. Sometimes because we have turned a small thing into an unrecognizably big thing. It's like turning what was still saying, making a mountain out of a molehill. And when we look at things or we look at each other, especially when it comes to our faults, our shortcomings, and we all have them. When we look at each other through a microscope, we look at each other's flaws, at each other's the mannerisms, the things that we don't like, that ruffle us, ruffle our feathers or rub us the wrong way, then we can find ourselves putting each other under a microscope. And the issues, they become bigger than they actually are. They become unrecognizable. And it becomes a barrier to forgiveness. So one of the things that I'm going to go to the slide myself. One of the things that I was looking at is that this idea of forgiveness is really bound up in three things. And since my slideshow is not working, I'm not going to have you all go through this because you would see like the next thing. But we come down like some of the keys. What are some of the keys to forgiveness, right? And for us, it begins with, we referenced this the other day. One of the things that we look at is the object of the fast. The object of this month is for us to have Allah consciousness, for us to have a sense of taqwa, right? So at the center of what we are working towards is Allah consciousness, and from and then that moves out towards self-consciousness, And then on the outer ring of that would be the consciousness of others, the awareness of others. If that, that makes sense to everybody. So this idea of forgiveness is rooted in our relationship with Allah, right? We seek Allah's forgiveness, but Allah says, the hadith that we just shared is that no mercy will be shown to those who show no mercy, and no forgiveness will be given to those who cannot forgive others. So this right now, this month, these 10 days that we're in, this is a great time for us to move beyond the statements. Has anybody, well, I shouldn't say is anybody, but what I ask, is everybody familiar, or has anybody seen on social media or just had anybody send a text out, been on a text chain where somebody has said before the month of Ramadan began that if I've done anything to offend you, wronged you in any way, I seek your forgiveness. But it went out like to just 20 people, or it was a post. Has anyone had that experience? Has anybody seen that prior to Ramadan? Hello, is this thing on?
Yes, I've seen it, Imam.
Okay, all right. So that's a wonderful sentiment to just kind of throw out there. But the real work that has to be done is really on an individual level. So that means that while it's great to say these kind of things, right? It sounds great. It sounds real pious, right? And it's not to take away from the piety or the intent of anybody who has posted anything like that or said anything like that. But real forgiveness, it is rooted in us taking accountability for what we've done, and also for what has been done to us, right? So when we think about forgiveness and saying things like that, that means that we have to be intentional about reaching out, about making amends. One of the tenets of our faith is that forgiveness is rooted in accountability, and it's rooted in restoration, reparation. It's rooted in repair. It's rooted in justice, bringing about justice. So if we are aware that we have caused somebody difficulty or somebody injury, then it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility as individuals, right? As men, as thinking people who are responsible to address that to whoever it is that we know we have wronged, right? It's kind of the easy way to take out on some level, to simply say, look, if I've done you wrong, forgive me. I seek your forgiveness. But when you know that you've done certain things, when you know you've offended somebody, then you have a responsibility to address that. And the only way that that's really possible, only possible through having a sense of humility, right? So that's where that Allah consciousness comes in. I'm going to share this anyway because I spent all this time doing these, putting this together for you all, and it has not come together the way I hoped it would, but I am still going to share it. So hang on one second. Okay. Okay. So we're talking about what are the keys to forgiveness. And I just mentioned, Allah consciousness, that's at the very center. And then from that, it is our self-consciousness, and then it becomes, the consciousness of others. And what we find is that when we are conscious of our relationship with Allah, and we're conscious of ourselves, we're going to be, we will be mindful of our own strengths and our weaknesses. We'll be mindful of our imperfections. And also, that means that we will be constantly turning back to Allah, seeking forgiveness, right? Constantly turning back to Allah, aware that, you know, we've fallen short. And in doing so, our consciousness of others is going to be based upon that awareness, based upon our own self-consciousness, which means that our default, inshallah, our default would be that we would lead with forgiveness as opposed to, you know, seeking retribution. So I wanted to take a look at the other side of forgiveness. This month that we are, this month, excuse me, these 10 days that are really the theme is forgiveness. Is to consider what are the marks of those who are unforgiving. So we have here, number one, those who are unforgiven, right? They do not give forgiveness, as was articulated from the hadith from Quran. They hold grudges. They're vengeful, meaning that if they suffer an injury, that the only option is to inflict a similar injury. And while we have Quranic guidance that says to, you know, that you have the right to inflict a similar injury, you know, if you receive one, but it also says that for those who forgive, right, that there's a benefit, there's a blessing in that. And all of this within context, right? Not forgiveness where you continue to receive injury, but an injury that is followed up with the sense of repentance and somebody that's actually looking to repair the injury that they caused. But the unforgiven are also people who they see the world in one dimension, and they think people are incapable of change. And this is a truly important part of our understanding and the relationship that we have with Allah, is that we anticipate and we hope for Allah's forgiveness, and that we recognize that we have the ability to course correct. Right. So when Allah sends guidance, and those who receive that guidance, they may have been in the throes of or on the path of wrongdoing, right? But they receive that guidance and they respond to it. They have changed the trajectory of their life and the outcome, you know, inshallah, their final destination. So we're not stuck in being anything. And that means, and that also goes for us being on the right path, right? So for those, you know, being on the right path is something that you also have to protect. Doesn't mean that once, you know, we take shahada, that now everything is, you know, it's all peaches and cream. That's not the case at all. But we do understand that we have the capacity to change. And that's also one of the things that we draw from this month of Ramadan, being the month that the Quran was revealed, and that its revelation and the revelation and its communication, the way it was shared out through the character of Prophet Muhammad, peace and praise be upon him, it brought about a change where other folks prior to the revelation of the Quran might have thought that these people may have never changed, that they would never elevate themselves, that they would never have a sense of morality, you know, they will continue living in Jahiliyyah, you know, in an ignorant state. But that's not the case, right? So Allah shows us just in the fact, just in one, you know, in the month of Ramadan itself, is that it is a sign of change, that those who are sincere and open to Allah's word, that they have the capacity to change. The last point that I put here is that they do not seek forgiveness. So these are people who never apologize. And this is actually something that is really, I think this is kind of baked in some of the corporate culture. And not just corporate culture, but just the leadership models that we have in our society, where to admit wrong, that you've done something wrong to another person, is to present yourself as weak, right? So you have some leaders who they do not believe in apologizing. You know, I'm right, and that's it, and I'm right all the time. If I stomp on somebody, you know, that's it. They just, you know, they shouldn't have been there. but that's something that's actually promoted and something that is taught, you know, through modeling, and people actually pass this on to other aspiring leaders. Don't apologize for anything you do. You know, whatever you've done, you're always right. So as I said, forgiveness is the ability to change direction, to course correct, which means that we look at ourselves and realize, yeah, many of us can look at our own lives and see where we were and look at where we are right now. And, you know, one of the easiest things, one things that comes to mind is like, for, how am I drawing a blank? Malcolm X, Malik Shabazz, may Allah have mercy on him, grant him paradise. And they show this in the film, but also, you know, if you read his autobiography, you see how he came across people he knew from his life before he found purpose, before he found Islam, before he, you know, entered into the nation, and his life changed. He realized that, you know, he had a space that he could engage all of the talents and abilities that he had, and really be a champion for justice and his people. There were people that he encountered from, you know, back in the day, so to speak. There were people he encountered from back in the day when he was fencing stolen goods or involved in whatever, you know, life of, you know, making a living through criminal activities, right? And they wanted to still hold him in that same box. They wanted to talk to him as if his newfound, to them, his newfound sense of purpose, his newfound religion and lifestyle, all of this was really just a hustle, right? It was really just a con. It was a game that he was playing, not recognizing that, you know, in the beginning instance, not recognizing that there was actually a change, a profound change that had taken place, that he course corrected. He heard something that was different, that took him to a different place. And we know this is all only by the mercy of Allah, right? So we can look at an example like that, but we can also look at ourselves. There are people who haven't seen us, you know, in a long time. You know, we all have different histories. And some of us, by the grace of Allah, have come, you know, just, you know, we don't say full circle, but have done a 180, right? We're all the way to the left, and now, you know, going towards the right. And you come across people from earlier points in your development, and they expect you to be the same person. But that's really in opposition to the idea of what Ramadan exemplifies. You know, one of the lessons in it is that even the most backward, even the most misguided, the most ignorant, not in a, you know, in an insulting way, but those who are just unaware, that they have the ability to change their lives. They have the ability to course correct. They have the ability to recognize their past errors, and to, you know, when possible, to make amends for those errors, right? So that's also a part of this idea of forgiveness, is that we seek forgiveness, understanding and taking ownership and accountability for whatever wrong we've done, trying to make amends for that. And then we also give others the latitude, the ability to do the same when it comes to us. But going back to those pictures, there are quite a few. I had somebody tell me this. Well, it's about me, so it's not gospel, right? So I had someone tell me that somebody came to them about, and said something, you know, about me. They had a bone to pick with me, something, you know. And the brother told him and said, well, I think you should go talk to him and let him know what it is. He didn't want to tell me who the brother was. I said, that's fine, I don't need to know. But if you talk to him again, just tell him, yeah, I would love to talk. You know, I'd love to talk. But I mentioned that to say that I would not be surprised, because I know I have not punched anybody in the face. I've not stolen anything from anybody. But they're often small things, relatively small things that we do that we may offend one another. But when those small things are not resolved and when they're not dealt with, they become huge things, right? So what was a small little toothbrush bristle, to look at, but then you look at it through the microscope and it looks like, a tree. It looks insurmountable. It's unrecognizable. And these are the things that during these days, these 10 days of Ramadan, as we are seeking Allah's forgiveness, that we should also be taking stock of ourselves, that we should also be really paying attention to what's in our heart, right? So what is in our heart? The ayat that I reference here, I'm going to read this and invite you to read it if you have your Quran with you. I'm just going to read the English translation. This is Surah Al-Araf, the heights, and Araf also it speaks to know, right? To be familiar with, to having an understanding of familiarity. But it says, Bismillah, those who fear Allah when the thought of evil from Satan assaults them, bring Allah to remembrance when lo, they see aright. But their brethren, the evil ones, plunge them deeper into error and never relax their efforts. All right, so there's two pieces to this, obviously, right? The first is that those who fear Allah, when the thought of evil from Satan assaults them, bring Allah to remembrance, and then they see the error in their ways. They see the error in their perception, their actions, or whatever, right? It says, but their brethren, the evil ones, right? Those who have not accepted guidance, those who reject guidance, those who are the party of Shaitan, and so on and so forth. It says, but their brethren, the evil ones, plunge them deeper into error and never relax their efforts. So those who do not bring Allah to remembrance, right? Those who do not seek refuge with Allah, right? It says when a thought from Shaitan assails thee, seek refuge in Allah, right? And this is in more than one place in Quran that we can find this guidance. But it speaks to the action before it becomes an action, right? The thought before it becomes an action. And this is in some way, this is a part of how we can see this ability to change direction even before we start moving, right? So as Muslims, as believers, we understand that we are not immune from the influence or from the call or invitation from Shaitan, right? Absolutely not. But we have protection. We have protection. And a part of the protection that we are building up, it is in the fasting, it's in the prayer, it's in the dhikr. We talked about these, briefly last night. But our forgiveness is really contingent upon our ability to respond to that remembrance of Allah and move differently. All right. Yeah. So here it is. If a suggestion from Satan assail thy mind, seek refuge with Allah, for He heareth and knoweth all things. I'm gonna stop my share here. So I shouldn't say always, but I like to try to be proactive to put whatever observations that we have into practice. So as I mentioned and kind of alluded to earlier, the exercise of during these 10 days, the exercise of going into our own hearts and asking ourselves what grudges we've actually carried with us into Ramadan. And nobody's gonna, it's not for us to holler out loud, what those are, but it is for us to recognize what those are in our own hearts. What grudges, what negative feelings do we have towards whether it be our Muslim brother or sister or family members, loved ones, so on, you know, what negative feelings do we have we harbored that we have not dealt with, especially if they've come from a small, you know, a small interaction, something, you know, wasn't life threatening, it was not a life or death type of situation, but it just has not been dealt with. It has not been confronted. Right. So during these 10 days, this is also something to remember, that Allah does not forgive those who will not forgive others. Right. And there's context. So I am saying all of this. I know this is an intelligent group, and we don't just say we just offer blanket forgiveness, you know, without understanding the components of forgiveness. A huge part of forgiveness is the person who is seeking forgiveness, right? The person who's actually seeking forgiveness. We've got some models in our society where, particularly as it comes to African Americans, when we suffer injury in public, and then the news, you know, the cameras show up, and the first thing that they ask, you all remember the Mother Emanuel Church, Dylan Roof, when he, you know, just absolutely, you know, ghastly, you know, cowardly, devilish, horrible, you know, just add whatever adjective you want in there, killed people, you know, in a church, a sacred space. And the response from media, the first moment that they get to put a microphone in somebody's face is, do you forgive this person? Right? This individual did not profess repentance, right? There was no regret. There was no desire to, you know, and there was no desire to take responsibility to repair. There was no contrition whatsoever. But the question was still asked, do you forgive? Do you forgive him? Right? So that's not forgiveness that actually leads to justice. So that's one of the things that we look at, that's central to forgiveness for us. And sometimes I know we say we forgive to preserve ourselves. We forgive to release the burden of an injury you know, that somebody might have inflicted upon us, so that they're not living rent free in our heads. And that's fine too. But to understand that when someone seeks forgiveness, they also seek to bring about justice. They also acknowledge the injury, right? And it's easier to talk about the someone seeking forgiveness. Often, you know, more often it is to talk about us seeking forgiveness, right? Us seeking forgiveness and taking accountability for whatever we might have done to others. And it's a nice step, as I mentioned earlier. It's a nice step to you know, in this social media age, this time that we're in, where we can broadcast our thoughts potentially to thousands of people, or 500 or 5, right? Just to put them out there in the air. But that's not how injury works. We understand that we're connected. Our words, our actions, they affect other people, and often we are aware when things kind of go awry. But if we allow ourselves to be complacent and content with just leaving relationships, you know, with phrase in them, you know, the end of the fabric, you know, the thread is coming out, and you say, I'm not going to worry about it. But the longer you move, the longer you go on, the less and less stable that fabric is, the more it begins to fray, and it looks nothing like it did. So this is an opportunity for repair. You know, that's what it is. It's an opportunity for us to repair our relationships with others, being mindful of our relationship with Allah. So this is not something for us to take lightly. As we make dua, we ask Allah to forgive us. Let's also look at, at our actions, and look at our relationships, look at the people who are around us, and be willing to sit down, to make amends, and to know that even if somebody has done something, and it's all in context, you have to listen to yourself. It's also to know that we have the ability to course correct. We have the ability to change for the better, and to listen to Allah's guidance, to be responsive to it. As I said, this is the month that the Quran was revealed to a people who were in desperate need, right? It said the Quran was sent to a people whom no revelation had been sent, right? They were out there absolutely bad, but those are also the people that we look to now. We talk about the Sahaba and later on the Tabi'een, we talk about these people who are the models of what it means to be Muslim. But these are also people, when the Quran, many of these people, when the Quran found them, some of them were, were not somebody that you would look at and think would have any kind of value, right? But Allah makes that determination. So we have to look at one another also, and realize that, Allah is still working on all of us. We all have the ability to do better, to be better. But as forgiveness is given to us in the Quran, it's not just a forgiveness that's devoid of accountability, or that's devoid of repairing, injury. It's a forgiveness that's attached to those things. So we pray that Allah forgives us, and we pray that Allah gives us the humility and the strength and the openness to forgive others, and to seek forgiveness, to admit, our shortcomings, to recognize the injuries that we may have caused to others, and to be accountable for those things, right? So our relationships do not disintegrate, but actually we come out of this month with our relationship strengthened, inshallah. Any comments? Any comments or questions?
Assalamu alaikum.
Like my salam.
Ashir. Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak to
Ramadan.
everyone on the line. You're very, very enlightening and interesting topic. Some of the things and I came on a little late. I was getting my Ramadan nap in. I napped a little too long. But they have a concept in this society too. I don't know if it has any truism in them. Say I'll forgive, but I won't forget.
Yeah.
And some of the other things that rolled into my mind on forgiveness, when Jesus, alayhi salam, in the Bible talk about forgive them, my Lord, because they know not what they do. And Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he went into Mecca and conquered Mecca, he said there would be no more bloodshed. We forgive, all of the past atrocities that had been put upon them by their enemies. And also many of the disbelievers who had fought against Prophet Muhammad and came, to his side. And I'm just looking for you to have a comment upon, because these are enemies. These are people who had killed Muslims before in battle. Khalid bin Walid and others who had then came over to al-Islam. And what kind of lessons can we learn from that in our life today, and to apply them? So if you can comment in those areas.
Sure, Brother Bashir, I think that's a great point that you bring up, because what it also, so what it also shows, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was there's a beautiful kind of a story that shows the the human sensibilities that we have, along with this higher sensibility, this desire to embrace forgiveness. And that was, and I believe it was after, I think it was after the final, you know, when Mecca was conquered, right? But the scenario is there's forgiveness given, everything is good, nobody's going to be punished. But there was a man whose brother or a close relative had been killed by another, right? And at this point now, you know, we're all Muslims, we're all part of the Ummah. But the Prophet, peace be upon him, recognizing that history, and also recognizing that they both had the desire to, you know, they're accepting his leadership, they're following, you know, trying to be, you know, good Muslims. Also recognizing that there's the human sensibilities, the injury of having a loved one taken by someone who used to be an enemy. So when it's time for Salat, they were separated. They didn't have to stand shoulder to shoulder next to each other, you know, forgiving each other. Everything is over with. Yeah, you killed my father, you know, and now we're okay. No, it was a recognition that forgiveness does not necessarily mean that you have to stand next to a person or be in somebody's face all the time, because the severity of injuries, you know, they vary. They vary. It could be a situation you've offered forgiveness, you've given forgiveness to somebody who did something absolutely terrible, you know, terrible and life altering. But because you're a human being, right, we don't have this capacity for infinite forgiveness. That's also like, I'm gonna still be with you, and I'm gonna be next to you. That some folks you forgive, but you know, you keep your distance, you know. So I think that's also really important, because we got to also, you know, we have to be real about things as well, because there are some things that are done where somebody can take ownership for what's done and apologize, but you're not going to be around each other. That just doesn't work.
What about the concept, you know, in our society too?
Yeah.
When people have been convicted of crimes, maybe justly or unjustly, and we know some situations are unjustly, and then they get out, and the society doesn't forgive them. It's a constant burden and impediment on them to live their life now in society as other people. Could you make a comment on that?
Yeah, you know, I don't. That's kind of an intersection right there between a society that's been sensitized to a caste system, you know, to believe that, you know, like I said, the whole idea of course correction, the idea of being able to reinvent yourself, not even reinvent yourself, but to improve, you know, recognize what you've done and then move on. It doesn't exist. And there are a lot more political implications that, you know, that's when we get into the intersection of race and politics and economics, all of these things, where it becomes it's a necessity to basically to ensure a permanent lower class, right? The class of people that will be basically exiled in plain sight, right? So I don't know. I don't think it's as much a moral failing as it is more politically and economically motivated. But you know, it comes out just as, you know, about forgiveness. But those are my thoughts. I welcome others.
Well, yeah, I'd like to make a comment in that same area too. You know, yeah, we forgive, and even the concept we forgive, but we don't forget. Mm-hmm. And in our real life, I think as you mentioned, sometimes we can't forget. We can forgive, but sometimes we can't forget, or it may not even be wise for us to forget situations or people who have injured us, because Allah tells us, to forgive them. I don't know. I believe the concept of Allah's forgiveness, that He does forget. I don't know if we have that capacity. We may have that capacity, but we might make ourselves vulnerable. I was looking at a program on the domesticated dog, and they were saying the dog came from a man domesticated the dog from the wolf, and they say the dog is a man's best friend because I don't care what you do to him. In most cases, he's gonna still love you. He's gonna see you coming through the door. He's gonna love you. That kind of nature in man, and they say some human beings have that nature. They just love everybody. They just good to everybody, and that can make you vulnerable in society if and I know morals grow into ethics. So I don't know. Those are just some things that's rolling in my mind. You might want to comment.
Yeah, those are very good points. Yeah, forgiveness. Yeah, forgiveness has a political end. It's a means to an end in society, kind of, on a large scale. It's not forgiveness that actually produces, that has a potential to produce, love and healthy relationships. It's more of a forgiveness that continues to keep people prone or susceptible to future offenses. And that's not the forgiveness that Allah gives us in the Quran, right? The forgiveness that Allah speaks of between us, right? And there's two different levels of forgiveness. One is the forgiveness between us as human beings, and then there's a forgiveness between that Allah dispenses to us, right? Our relationship with Him. But like I said, forgiveness without repentance, forgiveness without justice is not, it doesn't move us forward. It doesn't heal us. It doesn't help us. So we certainly should be mindful of all of those kind of those boxes, being checked off, right? The person who just says, I'm sorry, but they don't do anything to amend their conduct, which, Allah speaks of that. Use the word, aslahat, right? The same word for salat, same root, right? It's to repair. So we forget, we may cause injury, but then we seek forgiveness, but we also repair. We mend our conduct. We don't continue doing the same things. Certainly nobody, and I don't want to, jump into a much longer conversation, but just to think about, we've never seen our nation practice forgiveness as a nation, right? We don't see forgiveness modeled in that regard, right? But we are constantly asking the least capable, the most vulnerable to offense to demonstrate forgiveness without accountability, without repair, without justice, and that is a sin. That's exploitation. But in these last minutes, I just want to remind us to not let small things become big things, to see them as they are. And when we see small things as they are in one another, it allows us to, like, Allah, when you read the Quran, quite often overlook their faults, right? It's not major, it's not earth shattering, overlook the small faults, overlook the small things, cover our brother and our sister's faults when it's not something that is damaging to them or damaging to anybody else. You know, we all got quirks, you know, we got mannerisms and things, you know, whatever, but we should never allow those things to become allow those things to become big things that separate us and divide us. So as we seek Allah's forgiveness, we also should be, you know, extending mercy towards one another, and be willing to forgive and seek forgiveness from one another as well. Inshallah. So we have come to the end of this Talim. I pray that there's been something that's been said of value to, you know, make us think. It might take us off on a different tangent. And that's quite often how discussions work. But inshallah, Allah continues to bless us during this blessed month. And we will conclude with Surah Asr and see you all again for Talim next Sunday, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr.